You found the Tumsa Leadership Podcast, the place where leadership begins with you. Join host Eric Kloss, an experienced paramedic, leadership-focused nurse, national speaker, and two-time author, as we explore the challenges, victories, and growth that comes from leading yourself before leading others. Subscribe now and journey with us to create a brighter future for EMS professionals everywhere.
Roosting on the tractor. That could be a country western song.
Yes, that actually is good. Maybe do that in my spare time. We were talking about Lee, and one of the things that offended Lee, more offended than anyone that I've ever, well, I can't say more, but certainly ranked up there, ambulance driver. So he would get more up.
Oh, yeah.
So what I would do, because we were partners for a long time, we picked up a lot of non-emergent people.
Yep.
And so my biggest thing is, like, we'd pick up, an older person, and we'd get to the hospital, and I would kind of egg it on a little bit. And be like, well, what did you think of that ride? And we're like, oh, sweetie, that was the best ride ever. And I would wait perfectly timing. So Lee would come around the back of the doors, and I was like, well, let's say it's Mrs. Jones. Well, Mrs. Jones, Lee is our best ambulance driver we have in front of you.
Funny. So funny.
So,
oh, boy.
Lee is the best ambulance driver I've ever worked with.
I've been in some meetings where somebody made a big faux pas and talked about some of our...
People lose their mind.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They are highly offended. And I get it.
I get it. But, it never bothered me, actually. I was like, that's fine. That's, you're not educated, and it's fine. I've been called worse.
I bet you have.
But...
Oh, that's funny.
So we have a good time doing this.
That's fun.
Well, Lee, we're ready to go, right? All right. Well, I'm excited. You excited?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are grateful that you are joining us today. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tumsa Leadership Podcast. My name's Eric Kloss. I'm your host, and I have one of the most special people in the whole world sitting across from me right now, Miss Raye Nell Dyer. I'm excited. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
I want to start this off right now. And we've been friends for what, 16, 17 years?
Long time.
Long time.
Long time.
And I will tell you that the impact that you have had on me has been really profound. Just your presence alone, and I know we're going to get into what you do, but there are certain people that you're around that make you better and make you feel better. You are one of those people. And that's why right away when we were doing the podcast, I'm like, I cannot wait to have a conversation with you.
That's overwhelming to hear, and kind and generous.
It's true.
And appreciated.
Well,
so thank you.
And it's true. And I didn't know where we were going to go, starting this off, but why we're on this topic. There's an important leadership principle that we are taught and we don't necessarily do. Like, there's certain things. And during times of my life that I've gone through different challenges is when I've heard from you when I needed to hear from somebody to lift me up. And many of them have come in the form of you writing letters or sending cards. And it is not common, but I can tell you, if you are the people listening, if you do that, like those deposits, that it makes a difference.
It does make a difference.
And I'm just going to be vulnerable. I wish I did that more. I think I'm good at sending a text or, calling someone and doing that. But sometimes it is something about reading the words and not just an email.
Yeah, and it takes intentionality to do that.
It does.
It doesn't just come easily, usually.
No, it doesn't. You definitely have to intentionally do that. But today, we are going to really get to know what it is that drives you and really get into how you make people better. And that's truly the essence of leadership. And but let's start by just kind of sharing with everybody of what it is that you do, and let's start with that.
Okay, good enough. Currently, I'm a chaplain with an air medical program. Before that, I was chaplain at a children's hospital for about 21 years. And in 2018, retired from that and came to the position that I'm in now. Prior to that, I don't know if you know this, I was a campus minister for about 17 years.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and worked with college students. It was great.
Was it in Tennessee?
No, it was in Texas and Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. So I had another career in my lifetime prior to this one. Along the way, I went to seminary, and I also did a hospital chaplaincy residency, which prepared me for what I'm doing now. One of the funny things about my journey is that when I was a kid, I loved to drive. I mean, a kid. I was a little kid, and I talked my parents into letting me drive their car.
So you're like, you're physically talking about getting behind the wheel. Okay. Okay.
Not on the street.
Okay.
Our house was in the middle of 15 acres.
Okay.
And around the house was a dirt road, a gravel road. And I would get in their car and I would go around and around and around. And there was a tree in front of the house, and I'd go and I'd circle the tree and I'd go around the other way, around and around and around. Get it? I had to sit on a pillow. And even then I looked through the steering wheel to see. But I thought it was the ultimate. And when people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be a taxi cab driver. I really thought that would be the ultimate career goal. So I had that for a while. And this is no slam against taxi or Uber drivers, but I'm sort of glad my path took me in a different direction. I think this is a better fit, although I still really like to drive.
That is incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. What is it about driving that you think you've kind of like were fascinated about? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it was kind of an adventure.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't have anybody telling me that I couldn't do it because I was legal. I mean, we were on our property. I guess it was legal. We were on our property. I never drove on the street. But it was just fun. It was just being in a car and just driving. I just thought it was so cool.
Before seatbelts.
Oh, heavens, yes. Before air conditioners, before everything. And big old steering wheels,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
with the horn in the middle of it. Yeah.
I remember driving, if I'm not mistaken, there's no reference, like I can't validate this, but it was a 1950 something Chevy that
Whoa.
my stepdad had at the time. And I remember right before the seatbelts and the safety things, I remember actually shifting the gears in the middle of the car, right, in the
Yep.
long bench seat.
Yep.
And just, it felt like you had to move it like 10 feet, you know, to get it in gear. And I remember that. And it was maybe of, you know, certain freedoms about driving. And I love that too. It was definitely
cool.
a fun experience.
It was fun. It was fun. I'd rather do that than just about anything, except go visit with my friends. I was always about that.
That's amazing. So you worked at a couple of different children's hospitals, and that's where I had an opportunity to meet you. And I remember meeting you for the first time and hearing a lot about you, and knew that you did, you know, different events, and, you know, you prayed for families, and just, it was a very significant work, stressful, working at a children's hospital. You know, there's nothing, there are days that you're just like, wow, this is overwhelming. And there's great things that happen, but there's some heavy moments.
Yeah, for sure.
In there. What do you think drove you to kind of feeling like you were called to ministry? Was there something in your life that happened?
A lot of things happened in my upbringing. My immediate family was my mom and my dad and my younger sister. And I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins around that all lived in the same town. So I had a tribe that I was always a part of. And so I learned the value of being a part of something. And also, my dad was a plumber. And when I was a little kid, same age about when I was driving, I'd got to go with him on Saturday mornings. And I had a little cap like his that had Dyer City Plumbing on it. I thought it was so cool. And he paid me $1. I'd hand him tools. I'm sure I was more in the way than I was helpful. But I learned about what it felt like to help somebody, and to be included. So I learned that from my family. I also learned about being included and helping other people from being a part of a youth group in church that had a profound influence on me. And I was in the band. I played trumpet for a whole bunch of years and loved that. So I learned the value of what it felt like to be a part of something, and those things influenced my upbringing. Something else that you may not know about me is that really influenced me is that I was adopted.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool story. My mom and dad had been married for 12 years and couldn't get pregnant and decided to adopt. And the doctor who found me for them was Dr. Nell. And my adoptive dad's name was Raymond. So that's where Raye Nell came from. And then 21 months later, my mom got pregnant. My sister was born. So that happens a lot. But from an early age, I was told that I was chosen and that I was loved.
Right away.
Right away.
That was the upbringing. Wow,
Yeah.
that's profound.
Yeah, and it really influenced me to go into what I'm doing now. And once we know that we're loved, we can do almost anything. And so I felt from early on that I wanted to do something with other people. I wanted to make a difference in some way. That had a really huge impact on me.
I could see that now. I didn't know that. But I can really see how that actually comes out of you. Like, right, you learn that is what comes out of you and
Yeah.
flows out of you. And if we can talk about that for a couple of minutes, there's a lot of stressful things that are happening in your world, dealing with, air medical, you dealing with hospital, and it's overwhelming sometimes. Like the bad stuff that happens, because it's there every day, right? I mean, we're dealing with it not only from the teams that are very big that are going through personal challenges.
Yeah.
Then you get bad events and you get bad calls. How in the world, and what can we learn from you on staying positive? Because every time I have been around you, or that I've talked to you, or that you send out an email, it's encouraging. And I'm like, how do you do it? How do you stay positive all the time? Or that's my perception, by the way. But
Well, and I'm not positive all the time. When I'm doing things, I certainly want to put my best foot forward, but I'm a human being too, and I have good and bad days like everybody else. In answering that, I want to start with a story. When I was chaplain at Children's Hospital, the hospital was adding about 30 new beds. There were a couple of cranes, there was construction everywhere. And one day I was walking past some of the construction, and I heard a construction worker on the phone talking to a worker buddy of his who was up on top of the building, like 8 or 9 stories up. And he said, "Buddy, don't worry. If you're 5 feet from the edge, you don't have to be tethered." And I wanted to jerk that phone out of his hand and say, "You are crazy. Being 5 feet from the edge of a building and you're telling the guy he doesn't need to be tethered." I've thought about that a lot. I think it's a really good metaphor for life. And I think it's a good metaphor for trying to maintain a positive attitude, because I think you have to be tethered. I think you have to be tethered to your values, to your character. I think you have to be tethered to your belief system, your faith. I think you have to be tethered to whatever brings you goodness and joy and love. You have to stay tethered to that, and certainly to safety and all the things that we learn as crew members about taking care of ourselves. I think you have to be tethered. So I think that part of what I take from that is that to maintain a positive attitude, I have to be true to myself. I have to really focus and be sure that I know who I am in any given moment. And, and also to have some kind of good work-life integration. We often refer to that as work-life balance. I think a better word is work-life integration. That didn't come from me. I heard it from someplace else. But work-life balance is, I don't know if it's really that, but it's more about integrating personal life and work life. I think that really makes it work for us. I think to remain positive, we have to be honest about our strengths and our weaknesses, our commitments, our fears. the things that worry us. And we know that in EMS that folks in our industry can experience more trauma in one shift than a lot of people do in a whole lifetime.
Agreed.
So I think that as we remain positive in the midst of that, and then we can realize that even when the outcome is not what we want it to be, that if we have made a difference in somebody's life, if we have lifted a burden in somebody's life, even for just a moment, then that matters and that makes a difference.
There's a lot to unpack with that. I want to go back to the tethering part. I love that metaphor, by the way, and I think we all can experience that, and we think about things that have happened. Is it fair to say that when we look at the word tethering, and if we could change the metaphor and actually practical application, would you say that it's staying connected to other people and not doing life alone? And is that what you would describe for, the average healthcare worker that is out there that feels like the battle, and every day they're just getting pounded and they're getting more tired and fatigued? How do we turn that into practical advice about being tethered?
I think it is that, and I think it's being connected to who we are, and what we see our gifts are, what we see our strengths as. I think it's being tethered to God, your understanding of God, the people in life who bring you joy. I think it's being tethered and connected to your goals. What are you trying to do in this project? What's important, and staying focused on that rather than just kind of going, whatever. But yeah, I like that metaphor too, but it is about connectedness. It's absolutely about connectedness.
I am being in this field for a long time, since, the mid 80s. It's hard for me to even say that, right? As in, understanding that, and the brother and sisterhood, I think, with what it is that we do is very important. But I also think that it is important for us to know that that's not enough, that we need to do it outside of work too.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think for some people, they may look at, well, they don't have life outside of what it is that they do.
Yeah.
But that's a part that's not talked about a lot, because we're in professional worlds, we're in academic worlds. But that balance and that integration, I've never been able to achieve balance, right? I think it's constantly moving. It's like taking your car into the tire shop. You need maintenance on that. And you may have to focus with different seasons of your life, right? You have to focus on this particular thing more than you did something previous, and something's going to suffer. I think awareness is such a big deal when we're trying to figure out the balance. But for those that are listening, I've never been able to achieve perfect balance in my life. Have you?
Heavens no. That's why I use the word integration.
Yeah.
I think it's such a better fit.
Yeah.
It's such a better fit.
And it's always moving, right? It's always challenging.
It's always moving.
Yeah.
It's always moving and changing.
Right.
And you get over here and you think, okay, I'm okay for a minute, and then that changes, and you go a different direction about something else. It's constant.
I was listening to a podcast recently, and I've heard this years ago, but the speaker was saying we have to look at this part of balance and being able to be connected, going through challenges, as seasons of life. Mm-hmm. And I've never forgot that. There are times when it's summertime. There are times when it's fall. There are times when it's winter. And sometimes winter lasts a few weeks. And then sometimes winters are long. And we feel like, wow, it's never going to end. We're recording this in January. We just had a snow. And it's supposed to get down to the teens.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's never going to end, but there is always a spring following, at least in Tennessee, following winter. And I think that is an important part, is if, we're going through tough times, knowing that, there is life on the other side of that. Seasons will change. Definitely.
Constant change.
It is constant change.
It's constant.
It's stressful.
It is stressful.
Every season is stressful. There is something, and we're talking about lifting people up. And you informed me, which I was like, wow, I can't wait to talk about this, a ritual that you created, if I understand this correctly, of blessing of the hands. And I experienced this at a conference, and I'll share with you my experience with that, but I want you to kind of share with the audience what that is.
Sure.
And how did that come to be?
Sure. Probably 20 years ago, something like that, I was, ministering to patients and staff and families. And I kept I had it down about what I could do to offer support to families and to the patients. I was trying to figure out what on earth that I could do for staff, because the EMS staff, hospital staff, are on the edge always of suffering and sometimes death, often death, and days and nights that are really hard. So I came up with this ritual that I call Blessing of Hands, and the way it works is I have a large bowl on a table, and I invite the hospital staff member, the EMS worker, to hold their hands over that bowl. And then I hold their hands with my left hand in my hands, and then I pour warm water over their hands while offering words of blessing for what they do, but more importantly, for who they are. And I've done that for a bunch of years now, and I have offered it to hundreds of staff members in different places, in different settings. And the feedback I get from them, their reflection on it, is that it matters, and it gives them a moment to reflect on what they do and who they are. And they feel encouraged. Some of them come a little tentative. They're wondering, what on earth is she going to do to us? Taking my hands and pouring water on them. But they quickly see that it's not a scary thing, and they learn to trust me. And I call them by name. I look them in the eye. I look at their badge, and I name what department they work in. And I've been around the block enough to know what a little bit about that work is, and I talk about that. So it's become a really significant thing. And the one of the things I've learned about is just to be specific about what they do and about who they are. If I say to a paramedic, thank you for being so compassionate and for being doing a good job, that is meaningful. But if I say, Reed, thank you for helping your team be proficient and competent in doing EMS charts, and thank you for spending extra time last week with that mom who had an injured son in the ED and was worried sick about him, then that is powerful. That invites them to move forward, invites them to kind of settle into the differences they make. So I love doing it. I love doing it.
My experience, the first time, because you invited me to do this, and it may have been at the Children's Hospital. I can't remember. But I remember feeling like, okay, unsure, but it was like a spiritual experience to have someone, I'll use, pray for you. And you may call it differently, but for someone to acknowledge what it is that you do and to call your name. First responders are the backbone of our communities, but often funding restrictions leave stations without essential resources. That's where Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation steps in. They understand that not every response is a rescue, which is why they focus on ensuring first responders are well-rested, physically fit, mentally strong, and equipped with the resources and education they need to save lives. Serve Strong is dedicated to filling in the gaps for first responders, addressing needs that stations might not be able to cover. The foundation exists because of the compassion and professionalism of first responders, witnessed firsthand in the midst of tragic circumstances. If your department needs support, or if you want to support their mission, visit servestrong.us. That's servestrong.us. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation,
because when we're strong, our communities are strong too. Upcoming events. Mark your calendars for Serve Strong Upper Cumberland Pickleball Tournament on Saturday, May the 3rd. You can learn more by visiting servestrong.us/pickleball. And don't miss out on the first ever Serve Strong Bash, happening Saturday, October the 4th in Fairfield Glade. Save that date. Serve Strong, Corbin Scott Goad Memorial Foundation, filling in the gaps for first responders.
For someone to acknowledge what it is that you do and to call your name, it's humbling, because I think it's hard, and I hope all of the people that are listening reflect on that. And simply what I think from a leadership principle right now, what you're talking about is adding value to your team members, and specifically calling out what it is that they do. And it's rare. We get so busy and caught up in dealing with problems, right? We handle problems, and we become problem experts if we have leadership positions. But to be able to pause and to add value in the way that you have done this is amazing. And I've got to witness you doing it. And I think it was my daughter that actually got to do it at Children's Hospital, if I'm not mistaken. And it's an emotional experience. It is so powerful.
It can be.
But it's important. And I think there are so many leadership lessons, I think, in that, and what you've been able to do. But truly lifting individuals up and taking the time and the reflection to do that, that is an intentional action in leadership, and it's not easy to do. And are there other people that do this?
There are.
There are. That's amazing, right?
It's kind of spread all over the country.
That's great. And you had to have something to do with that.
I don't know.
Take credit for it. It's awesome.
I started it for my people, and then I went to the Chaplain's conference in Canada, in Toronto, Canada, one year, and I did a workshop on it. And so people there were very receptive, and wrote me later and told me that they'd taken it back to their hospital.
So there you go.
Their EMS group and stuff. So.
You have started it. I think you need to trademark it.
I don't know about that.
It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, it is. And while we're on blessings, I write a lot of blessings.
I've heard many of them, by the way.
Yeah, you have. I've written blessings for ambulances and helicopters and helipads and babies and retirement blessings and wedding blessings, blessing on a new office, blessing on a new career, blessings for a new job, divorce blessings. There's space for that. Sobriety blessings. I've written all those kinds of things. And the same kind of feedback, and the thing that I've learned again is to be very specific, to name what it is that matters so much to that person, to those people. And that's what makes it so powerful and so meaningful to them, where they can really, really, in their core, identify with what is being said. So
I'm reflecting a lot on that, because I think this is a key leadership principle that needs to be repeated. Is you are, this is not superficial. Like when you were working with your team and you're working with people, like you are saying things that the average person wouldn't say. Like it's easy to tell someone, oh, you did a great job. Yeah. But when you're like, wow, you did a great job in your department. You did a great job on that flight. You did a great job with that family. Like these are, we never forget those, by the way.
I think
really.
I've been told that. And I'm the same way. When somebody does offer something like that to me, it sticks. And it comes back in a moment when I need that encouragement, or when I need that motivation, or I need that inspiration, or whatever.
The letters that you write, because we're on this subject, and being able to go back and read the words from someone that really take the time to do it is so impactful. I received one of those for Christmas. Actually, there was a great friend of mine that I've got to meet and was going through is not in medicine. And we met and we got to spend a lot of time having coffee and talking about life. And he wrote me such a profound letter over Christmas. And I knew it took a lot of time to do that. And I want to encourage everybody to take the time to write. You don't have to do it all the time, but if something stands out and somebody's impacted your life, to do that. And you have modeled that. And I hope people understand the importance of that, because we all get busy and it's hard. Sometimes we don't have another minute. But wow, that is a leader's responsibility to be able to do. Our daughter is a writer, and she writes us letters, and
love that.
It has an impact. It really does. So thank you.
From your daughter, yeah,
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, she makes us cry all the time. She writes, and she's married, and she has got her husband to do it, and he's an incredible writer. So now we get a double dose where they're both. It is.
That's wonderful.
So, but it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And we're truly grateful that you shared that. You know, Raye Nell, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is the first question. Do you have bad days?
Absolutely.
I know that because I'm great friends with you, but some people may not know that because they only see you in the positive light. They see you as, someone involved in pastoral care and faith, but I do think it's important to get to this topic of, what is a bad day for you, and let's talk about. What advice can you give us to deal with it? Because if we don't acknowledge it, or we don't think that this profession or life is going to get to us at times, then we're naive. And it may be a very heavy weight when we're thinking to ourselves, I need to be stronger, I need to be stronger. But talk to us about bad days.
One of the things that has caused me to have more bad days than anything else is that I've struggled with clinical depression for several decades. About 30 years ago, in a short amount of time, I lost several family members to death. And during that time, I also got fired from my job as a campus minister because I had gotten ordained as a female and I hadn't done anything wrong. So it was a wrongful termination, but it was very profoundly negatively impacting to me. It was a hard time. It was a dark time. It was a difficult time. I knew that God loved me and I knew that people loved me, but some days that neither one of those were enough. They just weren't enough. And there was a day that came that I couldn't get out of bed. And I'd never experienced that before. I could not get out of bed.
I mean, this was really, it was just
it was bad.
Yeah, okay.
It was bad. I was paralyzed. I was just paralyzed emotionally. And a real good and close and sensitive friend came over to my house and convinced me that I should go see a psychiatrist. She called and made the appointment and took me to the office. That made the difference. That day was a turning point. That psychiatrist was so incredibly helpful to me. After that, I got on antidepressants. I started seeing a counselor. And all these years later, I'm still on antidepressants. I'm still in counseling off and on. And I'm a big advocate for antidepressants. I wouldn't be here if that medicine were not available. And so I advocate for people who need it to get it. I encourage people who struggle with depression to not think it's a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's just something that happens to us. It's not our fault. But if we can't get the help, if we can't be at the place of asking for help, then we're going to end up in a really bad place. I did, and Thinking about asking for help, there's a wonderful passage of Christian scripture in Mark 2 that it's a story of a guy who was paralyzed. And Jesus was coming to town, and he wanted to go and be in the presence of. But he couldn't get there on his own. He was paralyzed. He couldn't move his limbs. So 4 of his friends, and we don't know who they are, but they were caregivers of some sort. They made a pallet and a stretcher, and they got him on top of this thatched roof, and with ropes lowered him down into the presence of Christ. And, that guy, we don't know that he asked for help, but he certainly didn't say, no, go on, it's all right, I'm just going to lay here and stay paralyzed. He let them do for him what he could not do for himself. So I think asking for help is hugely important. And I'm grateful that in our society there is some lessening of the stigma around depression and around taking medicine for it. That it needs to be bigger. That needs to grow, and people need to be more understanding about it. But that's one of the things that has caused me bad days. In general, I think how I handle bad days is back to being tethered, to remind myself to take deep breaths, to take breaks, to be able to debrief with a friend or a colleague, to have somebody listen to me and reflect back to me what I'm thinking and what I'm saying. And sometimes to say no. Sometimes it's, I need to go home. I need to not finish this shift. The day has been bad enough that I need to not go home, and I need to go home and not finish this shift. And we have, in EMS, we have room for that in most programs, which I'm very thankful for. Because it just gets to be hard. And another thing I think that I've learned is to take things a little bit at a time. I don't remember the year, but when the tsunami hit Haiti, there was a lot of destruction and a lot of deaths. At that time at the hospital, we had a large number of Haitian employees. And so I offered them a service of remembrance and hope. The chapel was full. And there was one young woman who came who had lost 17 people in her family.
Oh, my gosh.
And I stood beside her as she lit a candle for every single one of those 17 people. There, of course, was not a dry eye in the place for her and for the pain of the other people as well. After the service, when she was getting ready to leave, I hugged her and I said, "What are you going to do next?" And she said, "Piti piti zoasco fenici." And in Portuguese, in her language, that means little by little the bird builds her nest. I've taken that to heart. When I have bad days, when I go through tough times, and I'm hoping things are going to be better, little by little, piti piti zoasco fenici, just one little step at a time, putting one foot in front of the other, taking it one day at a time, is helpful to me and is part of what matters.
There's a lot to what you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And I want to go back and start with some people that are listening to this that know you were unaware that you have had challenges with depression, right? They see you in this light of Raye Nell is always positive, right?
Yeah.
That she hasn't, come through challenges, and that has obviously made you super strong, right? You've taken that negative and made it positive. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that is something that I think it is changing a little more.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there yet. I think the stigma in our profession, it doesn't matter if you're a volunteer, first responder, or firefighter, paramedic, flight nurse, it doesn't matter, physician, surgeon is, I think sometimes in academics, we feel like we need to be able to have all the answers and that we need to be tough. We put the Superman suit on.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I want to elaborate on is being able to reach out to someone. And I want to create a little bit of context with Lee here in the room, who produces the podcast, and many of you heard me talk about that. So one of the lifelines, or one of the tethers, he's one of a few friends that I have because we've known each other for years. And when there's a bad day, and he's done it and I've done it, and we continue to do it for each other, if we call one another, and it can start the conversation like this: I'm having a bad day, I need to talk. And immediately, what's up? What's going on? And letting each other have the respect. Sometimes it's venting where it's safe.
Yeah.
And we're just like, wow, that situation frustrated me. And I don't need him to do anything.
Absolutely.
Just to listen. And there are times where I'm like, I really need your advice, but first I'm going to become emotional and I'm just going to just vomit all over you with the information. But I do think that is critical for our health. And sometimes it is not in our private lives with our significant others or our children. And so that is a key point. And there's not everyone that I know fits in that category. You're in that category, by the way, because of our relationship in years. And I've done that with you. And but that is a key component to, I think, being able to take the negative and turn into positivity. And what are some of the things that you do? Let's flip it now. What are some of the things that you do to keep yourself positive? And I'll give you an example. A great friend of mine who is a pastor of the church that we go to, and he was sharing a message, and he said, what you rub up against is really a big deal. And what he was meaning by that, and he elaborated, is what you feed your mind really is important. So be very protectful of the social media, of the television, even the food that you eat. Obviously, if we're not feeling good, and we were talking about that. But what are some of the things that you do to keep you positive in such a hard time, sometimes in a hard environment?
I think one of the things is to allow myself to not be on.
Tell us more about that.
To not be, to be able to step back and just be by myself if I'm not tethered to somebody, to have the conversation that you're talking about, but then to give myself permission to not go do whatever the next thing was supposed to be if I need some space. I think personal private space can be really helpful, to pray, to think, to read poetry, to do whatever the person needs to do to sort of settle into themselves and just sort of not be on, not be performing, not be out there speaking or that sort of thing.
So disconnecting would be another
absolutely
word.
Disconnecting.
Do you see, because I'm going to talk to you about this right now, do you see this being an issue for people in our profession?
I do.
Me too. That's why I ask you that.
I think it's really hard for us to disconnect. We're so intent and so strong when we're connected to what we're doing and our skill set, the calls that we're on, the conversations that we're in, the training that we're getting. Everything is intense. There's the meetings that we're in. There's nothing that's just kind of laid back. So disconnecting from that, I think, again, back to intentionality. I think we have to be intentional about it. It doesn't just happen, oh, well, I'll just be disconnected. Well, I think it takes a little bit more than that.
The availability that we have grown accustomed to with text, I'll give you an example. When basically for those listening, what we're sharing is that you need to be mindful of this, and you have to build it in. You definitely have to build it into your calendar where you're not available to a text. And there are systems in place in administrative roles that someone's going to take a call, for you. You may be on call, you may not, but to really put it down and to allow that space to just not be at work. It's critical.
It is critical.
And it's different for everybody, being able to do it. But we are in a climate, I think, at times where we can abuse that easily because we have instant access to someone. And that's not healthy sometimes.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying to those listening is to encourage to be able to have that space where you can text and like, I'm not answering that. And, for me, there's a couple ways, to do that. I love nature and I love being outside. And just to be, outdoors, maybe it's, hitting a golf ball with our son Christopher, or biking. I'm into this mountain biking thing now, and just because I can't be distracted when I'm on the bike, because if you become distracted, you lay it down. And I have no intentions of competition, but it is healthy, and I'm focused. Like I can't focus on anything, but it's not work related.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to build that margin. And what are some of the things that you do that when what do you like to do to kind of keep you healthy mentally when you're not working?
I have a group of friends that I meet with every Saturday morning. We have breakfast together, and we talk about all kinds of things. It's a community of faith for me. It's also we laugh, we cry, we process, we vent, we pray, we do all kinds of things in that time. And that's really healthy and important to me, and is kind of an anchor for my week. It's really an anchor for my week. I used to have a boat that I loved. I don't have it anymore, but I would take it out to Percy Priest, and
Really?
a little 15-foot bass fishing boat. It was wonderful. And that was my happy place, being out there on the water. Just here I am driving again, driving that boat. Except this time I didn't have to stay between the lines. I could just drive all over the lake. I love that. I sold it a few years ago, and now I have a hot tub. And I love being in my hot tub. The colder it is outside, the more I enjoy it. Talk about relaxing. I mean, especially when, like, I was out there the other day when it was snowing, well, not when it was snowing, but after it snowed, I had to brush a little path to get from my back door to the hot tub. I had to brush the snow out of the way, but the steam coming off the water, there was a cardinal over in a tree against the snow, and I just sat there and watched that cardinal for a long time, and just the warm hot water is so relaxing. So I just love that. It's one of my happy places.
And those are the things that just keep you ready to go.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Whatever the audience is listening, whatever it is, just be intentional about
Absolutely.
it. Don't wait. I mean,
just do it.
Just do it. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be an hour or two at a time.
30 minutes, 15 minutes,
you're right.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yes, but definitely do not just work. There's definitely got to be a balance, and to spend that important time with those loved ones, or to be able to do it by yourself, definitely. You are the master of words of encouragement. You really are. And from the prayers that you have prayed over people and the messages, do you have anything that comes to mind when I ask you words of encouragement for someone that needs to hear something, when they're like, oh, wow, I needed to hear this podcast, but anything that you want to share?
Yeah. I brought something to share. Before I share it, though, I want to say that I have a very robust quote file that I've collected over the past 40 years, something like that. And keywords at key times are so important. And I have so many really great quotes in there. You're in there from some leadership sessions that I've been in with you. A lot of people are in there, a lot of famous people, a lot of not famous people. And, a quote can really make somebody's day. It can be encouraging. It can be uplifting. It can help somebody think about something differently. It can help them make a decision, can give them vision for what they need to do next. So I love quotes. And the one I brought to share today is one from Mother Teresa. And it goes like this. There is a light in this world, a healing spirit more powerful than any darkness we may encounter. We sometimes lose sight of this force when there is suffering and way too much pain. Then suddenly the Spirit will emerge through the lives of ordinary people who hear a call and answer in extraordinary ways. I happen to believe that EMS folks are extraordinary and also answer the call in an extraordinary way every day and every night, every time they're on shift. First responders are dear to my heart and make a difference all the time.
Well, Raye Nell, you make a difference all the time. You do. You have built an amazing legacy. Truly, you have. That's what we can hope for as leaders, is to build a legacy. And people, as I said, and it's worth repeating, you model leadership. You really do. And the way that you do it, as in adding value to people and making them feel better. And I want you to hear from us and the people that listen. You truly do make a difference. Like, if you're ever questioning, is it really worth it? Does it work? And the answer is without a doubt, yes. So we are grateful that you spent time with us. You have made me better over the years. I'm truly grateful that you spent time with us.
Thank you.